Namaste Girishwar sir, Namaste Narayan sir,
Namaste.
to all. On behalf of the Department of Sanskrit Studies, University of Hyderabad, in collaboration with the Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit Kaladi, I extended a warm welcome to all the respected professors, distinguished guests, scholars, students, and participants joining us today for another enriching section of the Tadvidyasambhāṣā lecture series. Today's lecture is titled Why Indian Psychology Matters Today. At a time when mental health and holistic approaches to life are receiving global attention, this topic is both timely and highly relevant. We are deeply honored to have with us Professor Girishwar Misra, an eminent psychologist, academician, and author. His contribution to psychology and indigenous perspective have inspired generations of researchers and students. Before we begin today's lecture, I request Professor Padmaja Gadiraju from Department of Psychology, University of Hyderabad, to deliver the welcome address. Ma'am, it's over to you.
Thanks, Amma. So, on behalf of this platform, we welcome all present online and who are joining yet, who are slowly joining into this Google Meet for this online lecture upon why Indian psychology matters today by Professor Girishwar Misra sir. This is on the Indian Knowledge Systems platform, and this lecture is organized as a collaborative effort from Department of Sanskrit Studies, School of Humanities, and Center for Psychology, School of Medical Sciences from University of Hyderabad, and Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi. And as she has rightly introduced, I'm Professor Padmaja Gadiraju. I head Center for Psychology, and a warm welcome is also extended to my colleague Professor JSR Prasad, Head Department of Sanskrit Studies, and welcome to Professor Yamuna K, Department of Sanskrit Vyakarana, Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, and Professor G. Narayanan, Department of Vedanta, Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi. And in addition to these names, all faculty, research scholars, students, and other respected participants from across the departments, and many who are joining. As you are seeing, the number is slowly increasing. And on this occasion, I especially welcome Professor Girishwar Misra sir, who is a distinguished speaker for this particular lecture. And I have the pleasure of introducing him. He is a very revered guru of all of us who belong to psychology. I don't think there is a single student who doesn't know the name of Professor Girishwar Misra. Directly, indirectly, in departments like ours, where we often invite him for various lectures on various occasions and conferences, keynote addresses, etc. And also by way of his textbooks and his writings and his books, his articles, which we extensively cite and tell our students about and encourage them to read. So we all know that, all psychology students know that Professor Girishwar Misra has the highest dignity of being one of the top 10 most influential psychologists of the world. He is ranked 9, and he served as a professor of psychology at the University of Delhi for about 2 decades, and Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi International Hindi University, Wardha. And he began his research career way back in 1970s, undertaking field studies in Indian villages, completed a significant project on prolonged deprivation in 1976, way back. See, during that time, taking up such projects was, in fact, I think even till today, it stands as inspiration. He was a Fulbright Senior Fellow at Swarthmore College and the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. During 1991 and 92, Fulbright Nehru Lecturer at New School of Social Research in New York, ESRC Fellow at the University of Sussex 2008, and he has been a president and is its honorary fellow at NAOP, the famous NAOP, National Academy of Psychology, India. And he edited from 1999 to 2016. Between this period, the NAOP's official journal, Psychological Studies, published by Springer, and his research on intelligence, achievement, cognition, creativity, self-construal processes, happiness, emotion, and many more, frankly speaking, have enriched the cultural perspective of the respective subjects. Name the subject, I think we will have at least some amount of contribution from him, which you would like to be very, very proudly be cite. To initiate a dialogue with indigenous heritage available in the Indian knowledge tradition, Sir undertook a series of projects leading to 2 edited volumes: Structure of Indian Mind in 2009 and Foundations of India Aesthetics 2008, sponsored by ICSSR. Professor Misra has edited the 5th round, 2009-2011, 4 volumes published by Pearson, and the 6th round, 2019, 5 volumes, Oxford University Press. His recent publications for furthering the cause of blooming the indigenous psychology in essential ways, quite a few books, and I know that there are some more in the pipeline. Let me just mention a few: Contextual Approach to Human Development, Integrating an Indian Perspective, and Emotions in Cultural Context. One is Routledge and the other is Springer. And currently he is the honorary professor in the Faculty of Contemplative and Behavioral Sciences, which is psychology, at Sri Sri University. In fact, I was telling in the beginning of this, when we were having an informal interaction, that I have a spiral bound size book, a volume about the achievements and several activities which are useful to the society as well as to the academics that he has done. However, I limit myself because we are all eager to listen to Sir more. Thank you, Sir, for accepting the invitation, and thank you for being with us. I now request the organizers to kindly pass on the baton to Sir, so that we will not interrupt anymore.
Thank you, ma'am. I think without any further delay, it's my privilege to invite our esteemed speaker, Professor Girishwar Misra, to deliver the lecture on why Indian psychology matters today. Okay. Before that, may I request everyone to kindly keep your microphone on mute throughout the lecture. And if you have any questions during the lecture, kindly note them down. We will have a dedicated question and answer session. Sir, Girishwar sir.
Thank you.
So, okay.
Thank you, Krishna.
Sir, okay. Sir, one more thing. May I ask whether you will be sharing the PPT or should we present it from our side?
I think you should present.
Okay, fine, sir. Yeah.
Sarvebhyo Namah. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mahavatvyushavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. I am very grateful to Shastri ji and Padmaja for creating this opportunity to share some thoughts about what is called Indian psychology. We, in 21st century, are living in a very difficult world. In fact, some people are calling it a phase where we have multiple kinds of crisis. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. And the term which is being used is polycrisis. It's not one, it's multiple. I have listed some of them, and one can add to this list several other problems. Daihika, Daivika, Bhautika, all kinds of problems are present. There are empirical studies about mental health issues, and it is becoming an epidemic. if you look at the report of NIMHAS that tells the difficult situation where the number of cases are on rise and the facilities are very poor. The next issue which I have listed is of loneliness, and that is happening when we have created so many ways to communicate. Everybody has mobile, everybody has connectivity. Then we have a major challenge at workplace, burnout. People are reporting that they are not able to live their life adequately because of the pressure and tension at the workplace. AI revolution is one major change that is going to influence almost all aspects of our life. We find that the habits of mind are going to change. What you have to read, what you have to study, what you have to remember depends on the way you relate to artificial intelligence. We also note that there is increasing crisis in relation to our ecological conditions. You know, anavrishti, ativrishti, you have drought, you have flood. Not only that, we see that there is change in the cycle which is present in seasons. Ritu Chakra is influenced badly. Almost the whole year is summer. The temperature of this earth is rising. Then we have another major issue which deals with identity conflicts. The different kinds of, relationships between countries, between communities, between groups, between organizations are visible. And the main thing is that they have to compete, they have to surpass the other. Asmita. Of course, it relates to the idea of Atma and Atma Bodha. Then you have social polarization. The groups organize, countries organize, and with polarization, you see the other as an enemy. One who is different, who is other, becomes a problem. And you want to maintain a different kind of relationship with the other. Anya. How this other is defined and how you work with that becomes another issue. Then there is a major concern coming up in developed countries as well as developing countries and that relates to loss of meaning, arthahinata. You are not able to make sense of yourself, sense of others, sense of life. What is the goal of life? Why I am working here? So there is a problem of Atma Bodha. And if you look at all these things, you may realize that the problems are not only related to technological problems or technological crisis, but it's really a crisis of consciousness. Who am I? The question of Atmanam Viddhi, understanding the nature of self. Who are you? I think that becomes the central question. My humble submission is that these are some of the issues which make Indian psychology signally important, critically important. How we exist, why we exist, how this life has to be organized are big questions. How one can aspire to achieve the goal, which is very frequently cited, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that this world becomes a family and you live a life. If you read the full words, Udar Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So it's important to become Udara Charita. Not only that, you need to understand that your existence and existence of others shares something which is common. There is a similarity of the elements which constitute Pinda and the Brahmanda. So if you realize this, then the situation changes. If you think that dharma is the basic principle to organize life, and dharma requires that you should not behave in a way which is not liked by you. Pratikula acharana, something which you don't like. You don't like to be hurt, abused, but you like to do it to others. It is important to understand that one must see the avyaya bhava, something which is shared, something which is present in everything. You see the diversity, but the underlying connection or something which is shared by all, which is not visible. You have a garland, mala, and there is a thread, and the thread is related to all the flowers in that garland, and it is not visible. So Avibhaktam vibhakteshu yah pashyati sa pashyati. One who is able to perceive something which is shared across all the discrete things which are visible, that person is really able to see. That is Satvika Jnana. You also at times engage with Tamasika Jnana or Rajasika Jnana, but that is, at least from Indian thought perspective, is because we are part of Prakriti. And the Prakriti essentially involves the three gunas. I have just touched some of the aspects of Indian psychology to propose that Indian psychology has concepts, theories, processes which can address these problems. And it's high time that we realize the limitations of the existing way of doing psychology and make necessary modifications. Towards the end, I'm going to mention this, that psychology has to expand and it must integrate, incorporate the insights available in the vast volume of texts which include the whole Vedika Vangmaya, the corpus that is available in terms of Sangitas, Aranyakas, Brahmana Granthas, Upanishads. The story goes on. You have Vedangas, then you have so many Shastras. I don't think there is a need to list all of them. Out of those, two are very common. People often listen to that, Ayurveda and Yoga. I'm mentioning this because the insights, hypotheses, and theories which are available in these texts have been neglected and they are not part of our study, research, and everything. One reason is that people consider these Indian indigenous ideas as unscientific, which are not based on proper methods of understanding. Unfortunately, such allegations are only negligibly correct because errors are possible everywhere. But you need to examine whether those errors are there or not. So, the Indian psychological thought offers ways to handle these problems and it provides a model of intelligence, personality, well-being, as well as it relates to many things which are very important. Let me mention that psychology is not a discipline of physical science. It does not deal with concrete material. It deals with, even if I borrow the words from modern psychology, deals with behavior, emotions, thoughts. None of them have any concrete existence. They can lead to concrete things. The whole range of processes included in psychology are actually emergent processes. They emerge. They exist for some time. They vanish. They don't remain present in the same way. They are transitory. Actually, it's a lila. Actually, it's mithya. But that also exists. And that is also part of our life. And we need to deal with that. So how we conceptualize ourselves becomes critical. Now come to the next slide. Please, next slide. Krishna. Hello.
Subhashish, can you please change the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Any problem?
No, ma'am. Sir, it's now changed.
Okay. Now the okay. No, please go back. Yeah, this one. Yes. When we talk about modern psychology, it please go back to the earlier slide, I think. Yeah. No, that modern psychology and Indian psychology. Before this, I think. Before this. Go back.
One more slide before.
Yeah. Yes, please wait. I have very broadly put a perspective of modern psychology and Indian psychology. If you go through any book, why you are changing? Yes, this one, please retain it.
Yes, sir. Actually, some technical problems. Sorry.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Okay. Fine.
thank you. Now, modern psychology considers brain, mind, and behavior, and mind is considered as a product of brain. Brain processes are often considered as mind, and your thoughts, emotions, all of them are the products, are processes, and they are not visible. You don't bother about them, and in fact, you don't use the word mind in psychology textbooks. You talk about brain, and then you talk about different processes, learning, memory, attention, motivation, emotion, and all that. And then you talk about behavior, which is observed. Some people give some concession and use the word experience. So behavior and experience. They considered that, the actions that you take outward and the experiences which you have. But mostly, mind is reduced to mental processes. So the current definitions talk about mental processes and behaviors. They constitute the domain of psychology. And then they relate to brain. There are different areas of brain and they relate to different functions. So this is the map which we have from psychology. And this is being talked about, used in various ways. If you deconstruct mind in terms of various processes, you will find that all processes are conceptualized in many, many ways. So go to motivation, you have n number of theories. Go to other areas, you will find there are so many theories. And I would also like to remind you that how these three are conceptualized has been subjected to diverse schools of thought. Many of them are just remembered in historical sense, but the structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, you know, humanistic psychology, you have a psychoanalytic view, you have Gestalt psychology, field psychology. Well, I've just listed the various schools of thought in psychology. The contemporary psychology apparently does not claim to belong to a particular view, and they are quite open to any kind of view. And the dominant view is behavioristic view. So everything has to be converted into something observable. You have to reduce everything to behavior. So you have something in principle, reductionism, individualism, materialism. These things have become crucial. With the advent of computers and now AI, you have a framework. All this started in 60s and they developed or accepted an approach called information processing. So everything is converted into some kind of information processing. It came from computer. So memory is encoding, storage, retrieval, and then you see storage should be short term or long term, deep level or surface level. So the model comes from a physicalistic model. The whole information theory has dominated even social psychology also. It has dominated clinical. Everywhere you think in terms of information processing of some kind. That has been the dominant trend. It is easy to use that. So you convert everything into this. You analyze it. Then you find it. And gradually, most of the schools have gone into background. Some of those ideas come back. I will give one example. William James, who was the main person behind the development of modern psychology in United States, a professor at Harvard, was thinking about self, thinking about consciousness, and he was also interested in religion. Incidentally, there was a meeting between William James and Swami Vivekananda. And after that, he wrote a book, Varieties of Religious Experience. Recently had some information about this meeting from the son of William James. And we have mentioned that in an article in Psychological Studies. So there has been some connection, but all that is on the margins. There was parapsychology, and many people once upon a time became interested in that, in extrasensory perception and all that. But modern psychology is closed to the possibility of the broader view of life and experience and self. Now self has again come back in a major way in modern psychology, and a lot of interest is being shown. When I mentioned individualism or the materialistic view or behaviorism, I'm just talking about the main trends. If you go into the details, you will find variety. I also want to mention that modern psychology has also grown in the sense that it has taken into account some of the processes through qualitative methods, and they are considering the possibility of using mixed methods and considering even first person methods as genuine, but still it is not considered properly. So the integration is still not there. Now, when you talk about behavior, you talk behavior in an objective manner. When you talk about memory, it is in an objective manner. They are like any object, and you assess, you measure, right? And there is a lot of work on measurement, and we have psychometry. So you want to measure everything. Aptitude, ability, IQ is very famous. So the modern psychology does all this, where self is removed, subjectivity is removed, and memory becomes how many words you have remembered. That is memory. So memory, the process part is reduced, and the objective part becomes very important. The story is very long. There are many variations. I will stop giving this picture. But I just want to remind you that psychology has been following largely a positivist framework and post-positivist framework. Gradually, they are moving towards constructionism. All this is related to the paradigm which is used, the methods which are used. So, we can talk a lot about paradigm, but the ontology and epistemology and methodology and axiology have been opted by psychologists in certain way. and they determine what can be known, how that can be known, and the goal is observation is the method, and that too directed towards the external objective physical reality that we do as psychologists. So the person is gone, the self is gone, consciousness is gone. What you see is only the material part, material representation of that. Now come to Indian psychology. Let me say there is no word Indian psychology in our corpus. We have all shastras, but I don't see any specific shastra related to this. We have Jyotish, we have Vyakaran, we have Sahitya, we have Nirukta, we have everything. So we do talk about Vak, we talk about Parapashyanti, we talk about Vaikari. There is analysis of language. Go to Bhartrehari, go to Panini, and subsequent developments, Bhattoji Dikshit, so many things are there. So the language and related processes are there. Go to Dharma Shastra, you have enough about social life. We have Anvikshiki. If you want to learn more about methodology, go to Nyaya. So you have whole analysis of what is knowledge, what is valid knowledge, what is prama, what are the methods. You have all methods. The whole range is there from pratyaksha to postulation, arthapatti, abhav, anuman. So there is whole range of methods which are available. And also, perhaps much more important is that the range of knowledge includes the para and the apara both. The physical, social world where we live, and also it is beyond that. So the methodology, if you look at Atmajnana, is equally valuable as the jnana of some physical object. So the scope of Indian psychology is much broad. It's broader than modern psychology. I just mentioned that there is no term Indian psychology. It's we who have started using, of course, a book with the name came in 1931 by Jagannath Sinha on Indian psychology, where he tried to take into account the various texts, and he published 3 volumes. It's a good summary of many texts. If you look at that and try to see, there is historical development of Indian psychology. If you go to the Vedic and then if you come to the 4 Sangitas, and then if you come to Upanishad, you will find a progression of ideas. Chandrama Manaso Jata. If you come to Mahabharata, you will find other changes. There is a lot of discussion. Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata, which talks so many things about psychology and psychological processes. You must have read Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krodho Vijayate, Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha, Sammoha Smriti Vibrama, Smriti Branshat Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat Pranashati. If you look at these such, or if you go to Kathopanishad and other Upanishads, you find there is a system, there is a thought system which is present. And they involve many things. Shariri is one. Prana is another entity. You have 5 kinds of pranas. Prana, Pano, Dana, Saman. You have mind, manas. You have buddhi. You have ahankar. And you have chitta. Well, these terms are defined in different ways. But there is a lot of discussion about this. When we talk about chitta, we also have another candidate, antakarana. So you have external sense organs, similarly you have internal sense organs, antakarana. So buddhi is one, in one school of thought, it is considered as one antakarana. So chitta, buddhi, ahankar, these are the terms. I must say that they have been treated differently, and we need to sort out and create a very systematic way. Chitta is largely about, the contributions of sanskaras, perhaps related to memory, which can be modified. Not only that, when you talk about chitta, and if you go to the Yoga Sutras, you find that chitta can be at different levels. There are chitta bhumi, different bhumis are there. And also, the whole psychology actually involves the chitta vrittis. So the various chitta vrittis, the pratyaksha, you have others, you have nidra and smriti and viparya, you have whole thing. We don't have time to talk a lot about that. But chitta vritti, chitta bhumi, and what happens to them and how you live, there is a paradigm. And the paradigm takes into account you and your own environment. How you relate to your environment, your ecology. That is also very crucial. And it is not new. At least 3, 4, 5,000 old ideas are there. If you read the Shanti Patha, where you remember Apah Shanti, Oshadhaya Shanti, Vanaspataya Shanti. So there is a deep concern, and a lot of material is available in you where you are relating to other things. Not only that, when you talk about Sharira, you also talk about different types of Sharira. You have a Sthula and Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, you have Tanmatras. The whole system is there. So how it is organized, it's interesting. And Panchamahabhuta, that also provides a way to look at reality, the physical reality. When you talk about 3 gunas of Prakriti, you, if you want, relate to Ayurveda, then you see that the objects in the environment are oshadhis, everything. Also, who you are. So you have also all these attributes, the sattva, rajas and tamas. And you have also similar attributes of the objects in the environment. So you have to live according to the principle of Ritu Satmya. What I want to emphasize is that Indian psychology acknowledges the value of our ecology and environment. And there is give and take between the two. So you influence the environment and environment influences you. Parasparam bhavayataha. So this is very, very crucial. We also find you have a lot about testing of attributes and how gunas contribute to development of personality and individual being has been explained in so many ways. Guna karma vibhagasha. That is very important. One must recognize. And also there are many ways people can approach reality, organize their life. And Bhagavad Gita is one great example for that. You have Bhakti Yoga, you have Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. You have all, these are the pathways. So how to live, I think it's whole Indian psychology is applied psychology. I must share this. And you live life within a context which is internal as well as external. So in yoga, you have Antaranga Yoga and Bahiranga Yoga. The beauty of Indian psychology is that it is integral. It is integrative. So you have Yama and Niyama, which provide a moral pattern of life. So Satya, Ahimsa, Steya, Parigraha, Brahmacharya, etc. These are moral principles. They are meaningful only in the context of society, group, community. I mean, when you live with others, only then there's a question of truth and untruth. Or chori, asteya, stealing. It's very interesting that it's the whole list is ethical, moral principle to live good human social life. And then you also have asana, pranayam, dhyan, dharana, samadhi. So you see, you have to attend to your internal as well as your external existence. Psychology lacks this because it reduces everything to behavior, something external. When you talk internal, they will call it as an attitude. And they will use a questionnaire or a scale and give a value that you have this attitude up to this way. Modern psychology does not talk about change in the person. Atma Parishkara, Atma Bodha is missing. Even the psychology of self is also a very poor candidate if we look at it in the context of Vedanta. How self is analyzed. It is integrative to its core. And that is the problem with the modern psychology. That is not integrated. All of us remember the theory or concept of panchakoshas. There also we find that you start from the physical to spiritual level, vital, mental, all levels, intellectual, bliss. Huh? Annamaya kosh, pranamaya kosh, vijnanamaya kosh, manomaya kosh, and anandamaya kosh. So that idea to consider and analyze one's being in such a manner is integrative. So Indian psychology has a perspective which is broad, which is inclusive, and the key terms, if you elaborate it, if you look at the concept of dharma, even if you remember only Manu, धृतिक्षमादमोस्तेयम शौचमिंद्रिय निग्रह धीर विद्या सत्यम क्रोधो दशकम धर्म लक्षणम. And if you analyze and see how dharma is so inclusive, again it relates to life principles. If you look at the needs from the angle of purushartha, that is also integrative. You have dharma, artha, kama and moksha as a blueprint to live good life. So there are two models of human being. One comes from modern psychology, which is non-integrative, considers everything discrete as an individual. They don't have any idea to go beyond that. There is no possibility. Let me say that I have provided a simpler version of Indian psychology just to make you familiar that this approach is different than modern psychology. And modern psychology is going to create problem. And Indian psychology is going to solve the problem because it is integrative. And it takes into account the various methods. Even a theory or hypothesis that you propose has to satisfy certain criteria. It should be abadhita. And how to write, how to propose, how to analyze things, how to discuss, that has also been given in detail. Professor Shastri helped me to read the book Tantra Yukti. And now Tantra Yukti talks about so many ways to organize your thoughts, express them beautifully, and to get rid of various kinds of problems in scientific communication and writing and oral presentation, everything. So, methodologically, conceptually, theoretically, Indian psychology has a possibility to address many problems which are there. And the idea of who are you is central everywhere. Where it is Buddhism, which talks about anatta, or if you talk about Jainism, if you go to other Astika schools of thought, you have, Mimamsa, Vedanta, you have Sankhya, you have Yoga. All these provide a very detailed map of how you live. Yes, it is slightly difficult in the sense that Indian thought talked about ekam sad viprah bahudha badanti. Even Vedanta has so many ways to think. You have Dvaita Advaita, Vishishta Advaita. Advaita has many forms. So there is freedom to think. There are various possibilities. Aneka varani chintan. And you can enjoy, you can say, the depth of analysis, whether it is yoga, Ayurveda, or Vedanta. There is a lot of material available to explore. Now we can go to the next slide, please. So, the dominant psychology is concerned with behavior, symptoms, individual, cognition, measurement, disease. These are the key terms. And they provide one framework of mind. In contemporary development, we find there is some interest in consciousness, flourishing, relationship, meaning, wisdom, human potential. Those who were studying intelligence, I remember the work of Sternberg now is talking about wisdom. And one of his recent work, it's very interesting to see how they are taking interest in these ideas. So, the future of psychology lies in expanding, not replacing its paradigms. I think psychology was always plurivocal, bahubachaniyata. It was in 1910 and 1920, between these years, that you find rise of behaviorism as well as psychoanalysis, Gestalt psychology. So all these views provide different pictures of human beings. Psychology has several paradigms. What we need is to expand it. Next slide, please. Now, what is Indian psychology? If you want to call it psychology of Indians, I don't think it is. It will be partly correct. Or Western psychology taught in India, that is also not Indian psychology. So, indigenous science of mind, consciousness studies, human flourishing, self-transformation, these are the key features. I have tried to use contemporary vocabulary about human flourishing. It's very interesting. Psychologists and the whole world was interested in happiness. And now they are using the word flourishing. And flourishing means well-being of others also. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. So this idea of expanding the scope of happiness to include others' well-being also. So the Loka Sangraha becomes very important. And self-transformation is key to Indian psychology. It is not studying the other person, it is studying yourself, changing yourself. I remember Gandhiji who said that if you want to see change in somebody else, change yourself. So there are so many sources. I have listed that and you know that. Yes, next slide. If you look at the development of world has been, you know, projected from industrial to information age to knowledge age, and now we are happily announcing AI age. And in schools, I have learned somewhere that AI, in the three language formula, AI is also considered as one example, one alternative. It's so bogus idea. It is very difficult. You can't do it. But I have listed here after AI age, there is consciousness age. I have put it like this. If AI can think faster than humans, what makes us uniquely human? You ask questions, you get answers. I think it is consciousness, which is not there. They are trying, but I don't think it is possible. Next. Well, if Indian psychology is great and it has something to offer, something which is valuable, let me tell why it is not present, how it is not taught, why it is marginalized. I mean, it is very awkward to teach Indian psychology to Indian people, telling Indians to understand what is India. It's problematic. Obviously, the reasons are the colonial education, which created a particular perspective. And if you look at history, you will see the Orientalism and all other things, and how colonization has provided a mindset that what is true, what is knowledge, what should be studied, all that was reorganized the way Macaulay wanted. And we have continued with that. The Western curriculum was introduced. Some of you must have this information that our modern psychology department started at Calcutta University in 1915-16. And the gentleman who started this was one who was trained at Harvard. His name is Dr. N. Sen Gupta. He was trained with a student of Wundt, who was professor at Harvard. And the whole tradition was taken as a package. So psychology as modern discipline is transplanted, pratyaropit anushasan. So we had Western curriculum, and More recently, this publication incentive has become very critical. Then you want to publish, whether you understand or not, whether you explain it or not, you want to publish, and it relates to many things. It relates to academic prestige. And also, if you don't study the Western, you will be marginalized. You will not be uh, considered as right kind of researcher. So there is limited research. And whatever research is available is of not good quality. And there is weak visibility. Whatever meaningful or nonsense is done in the Western tradition, it is immediately shown everywhere and it becomes visible. So the challenge is institutional legitimacy. It is not intellectual poverty. You have ideas, theories, concepts, but it is not visible. It has not received institutional legitimacy. We don't have departments with Indian psychology name. Long back in 1965, Professor Durganand Sinha from Allahabad University did publish in Journal of Humanistic Psychology an article on integration of modern psychology with Indian thought. And he pursued some of those concerns. He has been one of the internationally recognized leaders in indigenous psychology movement. But the place of Indian psychology in psychology departments is questionable. It has not received right place. It is not part of the syllabus or course. So it's a peculiar situation. So here is the legitimacy dilemma. Next. Now, the barriers again relate to the same thing in another way. Colonial mindset, prestige bias, imported curricula, publication pressures, lack of research infrastructure, academic culture, funding, identity, status. Now, why Indian psychology is not developing? Because of this kind of academic resistance. Next, if you want to go beyond that legitimacy dilemma, we have to shift from seeking acceptance to generating knowledge. The whole effort of modern psychologists is to seek acceptance. It's very poor in terms of generating knowledge. We only retest the ideas which are present in the Western world, Western theories. And then comes defending tradition. We often spend a lot of time in defending rather than building science. we borrow theories rather than create theories. If you want to move beyond the legitimacy dilemma, we have to work in this manner, from seeking acceptance to generating knowledge, from defending the tradition to building science, borrowing theories to creating theories. This is the challenge that we have to accept. So I think there are many. Next slide, please. The future areas which seem to be very crucial, they include consciousness, meditation, well-being, education. These are the areas. And we need to think. Take, for example, leadership. If you look at the Karma Yogi model of leadership, if you relate mental health and ecology, there are many, many issues. If you think seriously about ethics, only limited attention has been paid to these constructs which are in vogue, which are being treated from the Western perspective, which are very crucial and very important. We don't have time. I think we must stop in the, next few minutes. Next. Yeah. Some of the concepts with which we are related to in this, I just thought that research priorities: consciousness, compassion, resilience, non-attachment, dharma, self-regulation, meaning, wisdom, human flourishing. Next. I think we can't imagine to replace Western psychology. We can do something with this integrative model. And for that, I think we need to incorporate these three approaches in our research. First person, where you have meditation, reflection, you have phenomenology. Second and third person, they are already in use. They are in vogue. When you dialogue and therapy or teaching or community work. Third person, when you are doing brain imaging, when you are doing psychometrics, or when you are doing experiments. So I think there should be a right place for first person methods in our teaching. Only then some change will take place. Next. The curriculum should include Indian theories of self. You can have from Sankhya, you can have from Vedanta, you can have from Buddhism. They should be taught. And there should be comparative psychology. You see, it is not possible to build knowledge unless you see the beauty, good points, difficulties with different perspectives. So I think it is important to have this comparative psychology. Comparative psychology, earlier it was related to animals and human beings. But what I'm talking about, the different schools of thought and perspectives. Yoga psychology is one which has immense possibilities, and many people have tried to work on that. More recently, I have found interesting books by uh, Professor, late Professor Paranjape and our colleague Shilpa Pandit. They have talked about yoga, consciousness, and all that. Uh, but still, there is a need to work with it systematically. You know, the way we present, it seems that you are talking about a tradition, uh, something which is from past, uh, something which is very ethnic. You know, no Western theorist, no one from America will say that this is research done in America or American sample. Huh? Global North and Global South. Now there is recognition that, and some Americans have done that research, that most of the data for modern Western psychology represents between 5 to 10% of the world population. Majority world, the 95%, is absent. This is the empirical reality. So we need to think about it. Mixed methods, qualitative methods, ethics, and experiential learning is something which requires our attention. How to include it? Next. Application, I've just tried to put it: education, mental health, leadership, ecology, public policy. These are the areas where we can contribute from Indian psychology perspective. We can think of character as one major domain, holistic therapy, how ethical decision making can be practiced. The whole domain of human values are there. I mean, if you look at the idea of dharma, and as I recited from Manusmriti, that tells the major values, and we need to look at that seriously. Or the Purushartha framework. We have so many scales of values, but these values don't exist in those scales and tests and measures. Then interconnectedness and well-being. How to improve our quality of life by expanding the scope of well-being, not from individual side, but well-being of others. वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीर पराई जाने रे परोपकार पुण्याय पापाय परपीडन. Now, understanding the anya, pain and misery of others, anya has to be made ananya. Gandhiji was also saying the same thing, that you must, his definition of ahimsa was or is that you must love your enemy. Then you are a real ahimsa vadi. So the notion of well-being or happiness, subjective well-being, was about the judgment of, how self is rich. So you get something more, something more, something more. That is the meaning of So we need to redefine well-being. As Shushruta says, that swastha is one, prasanna atmendriya mana, and samatva, samadhatu malakriya. You have that. So that samatva as well as pleasure experienced in connection with these. And I think we need to think seriously that how santosh is related to well-being, sukha. The relationship between sukha and santosha. Santosh is antecedent. One meaning of santosh is that you feel that you are complete, you are full. So we need to see these and explore the possibilities. Next. Of course, these are my manoratha, that there should be national center, research chairs, doctoral programs, translation projects, funding, digital repositories, and many things are being taken up in various ways. International collaboration, professional, so institutional development is required. Next. And if you think of global engagement, Indian psychology connect very well with all these areas. Positive psychology, neuroscience, AI ethics, education, psychiatry, contemplative science, ecological psychology. These are the areas which are important and which relate to Indian psychology. You must have read about the work of Richard Davidson, who has tried to see how meditation is connected with the wiring in our brain. He was several years back at Delhi University. He came with Dalai Lama, I still remember, and he showed brain scans of monks who have undergone 2 hours, 5 hours, 2,000 hours, 5,000 hours, 10,000 hours of meditation. And his point was that the brain's physical structure undergoes change simply because you are doing meditation. So it's interesting, it's self-regulation. The brain is meditating and brain is changing. In fact, there's a book on meditation, Science of Meditation by Richard Davidson and Goldman. They have done an interesting work. So we have to see how we can connect with various works. Yes, next. You have to change the curriculum. You have to incorporate issues in research. You have to create even good journals and centers, and that will lead to global recognition. If you want to live in this world, you have to do it, and it may be not one day or 1 year. Perhaps you have to work hard. We have psychology in India for So many years, more than 100 years. We have not looked at these things. We have not done much. It is still not a compulsory course everywhere, even a compulsory paper. That's the situation. So we have to think very seriously. Next. What I see is that Indian psychology is at the intersection of science, consciousness, and culture. If you draw 3 circles, then it is in the middle of that. It is at the intersection of the 3. Next. Yes. To summarize, Indian psychology expands psychology, integrates science and spirituality, it studies consciousness, addresses global crises, contributes to human flourishing, supports decolonization, a new effort which is being done, and enriches global psychology. And that is why Indian psychology is needed today. Why Indian psychology matters. Next. The future of Indian psychology lies not in reviving past, but in creating new knowledge that helps human beings flourish. Next. See here, the emerging Indian psychology. Thank you very much for patient listening. I hope some of these ideas may help you to address your curiosities and questions. Thank you very much. I again express my gratitude to colleagues, Professor Shastri, Professor Padmaja, and all the colleagues and students who have taken time and have tried to attend this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this intellectually enriching lecture. Your ability to connect the wisdom of Indian psychology with the contemporary concerns has made this section truly meaningful. Thank you. I think we shall now move to the question and answer section. So we will now begin the question and answer session. Participants are welcome, and also to unmute themselves and ask their questions directly.
Good afternoon, Girishwar sir and Padmanjana.
Please.
Sir, I have one question. Since we are on Indian psychology, we have the term Atma in psychology. So, in Indian psychology, so is Atma and consciousness are connected or not? Just this question, because soul was removed from the psychology, like from psychology, long time ago. So that's fine.
Thank you. You have raised a very important question. But see the difficulty of psychology, that they have not changed the name of psychology. The term psychology itself is something which refers to soul or mind. What it means, they are not doing psychology, but they are calling themselves as students of psychology. Psychology is practiced, and as the name requires, there is difference between the two. Right? So see the dilemma. They don't have any other word. So they are misinterpreting, and whatever you think, the term psychology is being used to refer to something which is not psychology. It's behaviorology and whatnot. Anyway, now the question whether Atma is part of Indian psychology? I will say yes. Its conceptualization requires more detailed analysis, and I don't have time to do that, nor I feel perfectly competent to do that. You can discuss with Shastriji that what is the locus of Atma in the framework of Indian psychology. If you see, I just mentioned about, perhaps I did mention or not, the Rupak of Ratha, Atma, Mana, Buddhi, and then you have Ahankar, you have Indriyas, and Indriyas connect to Vishayas. What I have learned in very brief, I can mention that Manas, mind, is part of Prakriti, but it is such that it has high quantity of Sattva. And that is the reason that Atman is reflected in Manasa. So Manas has dual membership. It is part of Prakriti but has connection with Atman. It mediates between the two. That is one simple, very simple idea. And so it belongs to the Prakriti, it belongs to the material world, and it has also possibility to connect with Atman. And there is another way to look at. In Kathopanishad also it is talked about. You have, if these Indriyas are not properly governed, दुष्टा अश्वा, जो अगर दुष्ट हो गए अश्व तो कहीं गड्ढे में गिरा देंगे, you will be in trouble. So you need to regulate that. And so there is relationship between Atman, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankar, and that is the map. And Vishayas, Indriyas, how they are interconnected. I will stop here. There is a possibility to see the presence and how and what role it plays. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ram Sanjay Verma, for your question. May I request the next participant to proceed? Is there any questions?
Sir, may
Yes.
I add some of my experiences?
Please.
Sir, I have learned Sanskrit. Then later on, I began to apply some of my apply it in my life. But in the initial stage, was very cruel. Many people criticize you are not apt to live in this world and you are very outdated. Why you thinking this? And many people said many things. But I put forward. I began to forward. And later on, I realized that it is not about the materialism or studying something Western. It's all about the lack of real knowledge, or it is because of ajnana, something like that. So, what I know, somewhere the people are not good in Shravana Manana Nidhidyasa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are blaming on. Uh, the initial stage was very cruel for me.
Yes.
But later on, I realized it's not their fault, or they're not get the chance to learn this, or they're not blessed. What could I say?
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I congratulate you and appreciate your effort and persistence. Dhriti
Thank you, sir.
has worked. And You see, remember about Vivekananda standing in United States of America so many years back, and how he was able to convince with his ideas in a foreign land. So if there is quality in your work, in your publication, so knowledge matters.
Yes.
अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. I think it is very important to learn, as you have mentioned, Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. If you are with Guru, if you learn, I think you will definitely appreciate the word in a different light, and you will see how it changes you. One
Yes.
of the important aspects of Indian psychology is that it deals with you, with learner. If you read the Western psychology, they will test intelligence of somebody else, motivation of somebody else. They will not do anything with their self. They will remain as they were. I mean, after completing the study, they will learn certain tricks, certain techniques, certain technologies, which deal with other, but not the self. I think it's a beauty of Indian psychology that it addresses self-understanding, and you become what you learn, what you study. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maya. Are there any more questions?
Yes, Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, I'm Alpana, and it is very interesting session. Sir, I have one question. Sir, you have mentioned Indian psychology. So, how does the concept of mind in Indian psychology different from Western psychological perspective?
I have given certain glimpses of the notion of mind. Now it's too late. I will not give another lecture on the concept of mind. There is a book edited by me, uh, Psyche and Psychology by Oxford University Press, and there is a very good chapter by Professor K. Ramakrishna Rao on mind in Eastern and Western psychology. I will see if I have a copy. I will mail it to Professor Shastri, and you can collect and you can read. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. As we are moving short of time, we can move to the next session. And once again, thank you, sir, for your patiently answering all the questions and enriching our understanding. Now, I request Professor Narayanan Ji from Department of Vedanta, Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, to offer their remarks. Sir, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I feel deeply privileged to be part of this event and to listen to the insightful lecture by Professor Girishwar Misra. I express my gratitude to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be part of this event. The topic of today's discussion, why Indian psychology matters today, is remarkably timely as the global academic community increasingly recognizes the rich contributions of Indian thought. If we look at the root of the word psyche, it points directly to the self, the jiva or Atman. Psychology at its highest potential is the science of the self and self-realization. In traditional Indian thought, psychology was never studied as an isolated standalone discipline. Rather, it was deeply embedded within the philosophy and epistemology of every major school of thought. Within these systems, we find extraordinarily profound discussions on human experience, cognitive process, personality development, and holistic well-being. However, as Professor Misra pointed out, there is a stark historical disconnect in how psychology developed in India. During the colonial period, Western psychological frameworks were uncritically adopted into Indian universities, leading to a long-standing negligence of our rich indigenous traditions. For decades, mainstream academic psychology in India overlooked a 3,000-year-old intellectual heritage in favor of Eurocentric models. While Western frameworks have provided valuable empirical tools, they often treat the human mind through a fragment, purely material lens. Reclaiming and integrating indigenous Indian psychology into university curricula is therefore not just an academic exercise, it's a vital step toward intellectual decolonization and offering a more authentic, culturally rooted understanding of human nature. From Upanishads to modern thinkers, both Astika and Nastika traditions have addressed the core problems of self. The Sankhya tradition, for instance, offers a masterclass in psychological diagnosis by classifying human distress into three distinct categories: the Tridukha, the Adhyatmika, the intra-psychic suffering originating within our own body and mind, Adhibhaudika, the suffering inflicted by external living beings or our social environment, and Adidevika, the distress caused by natural, cosmic, or unpredictable forces. Instead of mere symptom management, Indian psychological thought aims at a complete transformation. Sankhya offers a definitive roadmap to transcending suffering entirely through Viveka Vijnana, a discriminating wisdom that distinguishes between Prakriti and Purusha. When Purusha realizes its true nature as unattached awareness, pure knowledge, pure consciousness, it's liberated from the hold of worldly suffering. This holistic outlook extends directly into how Indian philosophical systems map the mind and the human personality. Across classical Indian thought, a vital discussion is minded. The self is pure consciousness. The mind is subtle matter acting as the bridge between consciousness and physical world. All worldly experiences and knowledge arise because of this union. It is through the mind that the self appears to act as doer or karta and experience consequences as an enjoyer or bhokta. The yoga system operationalizes this epistemology by introducing the theory of gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. This framework explains how personality traits, emotional states, and behavioral tendencies shift, providing practical and mental technologies to elevate character, cultivate inner stability, and achieve pure personality integration. Why does this matter so urgently today? As Professor Misra highlighted, modern psychology often views human health through a narrow clinical lens, focusing primarily on pathologizing distress and treating symptoms within the boundary of ego identity. In contrast, in Indian psychology, approaches the human being holistically. It weaves epistemology, mental hygiene, personality growth, and higher states of realization into a single unified framework for living. By reconnecting with these fundamental insights embedded in our philosophical heritage, we can build a more compassionate, well-rounded and meaningful approach to psychological well-being for modern world. His suggestions for institutional establishments and concepts for global engagement should be considered seriously by the academic community, particularly in the context of Indian psychology or indigenous psychology. Thank you, Professor Girishwar Misra, and thank you you to the organizers for this enlightening discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now invite Professor Padmaja ma'am from Psychology Department to share a short remarks.
Yeah, I think that was a comprehensive lecture, enlightening, insightful, and covered a variety of issues related to psychology, Indian psychology, and from the ancient to the contemporary. Sir started with very important concept of by elaborating upon very important concept of polycrisis and presented two models pertaining to human behavior. One is modern psychology and the other is Indian psychology, and elaborated upon the different nuances related to them. And very interesting discussion on psychology at crossroads, with the emerging needs and the dominant psychology. What I found very interesting was one thing I think which we all of us do completely agree with and should remember forever: the future of psychology lies in explaining and not replacing its paradigm. So and it was very interesting also to note the anecdote that he has shared about William James meeting Swami Vivekananda. And then the transition from information age to the consciousness age, like industrial age, information age, knowledge age, and all, AI age, and over to the consciousness age, which he predicts. The legitimacy dilemma, the understanding of the academic resistance, and how to move beyond the legitimacy dilemma, and how we make the shift from what to what and how. And the focus of the future research with reference to Indian psychology, and the future of psychological training and the applications with relation to Indian psychology in various areas, as well as the contributions that it can make. And he also presented an institutional roadmap and how the global engagement is important. And very important, once again, while every point was important, I really was inspired by what he said. The future is integrative. It can never be separative. Its future is integrative. And of course, the key takeaways and all have been very enlightening. Overall, it has been an enlightening lecture, sir. It was very insightful, and every moment of whatever you have been talking about was really, I mean, I think all of us who were online and who are going to also watch it in the YouTube will cherish every word which has come out of, it's like a pearl of wisdom which has come out. And thank you very much, sir, for those for the enlightening talk today.
Thank you very much.
Our
Thank you,
pleasure,
ma'am.
sir, and honor. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Before conclusion, I am inviting Professor J.S.R. Prasad sir for a short remarks.
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful, enlightening lecture, highlighting the importance and role of Indian psychology in the modern times. What I liked is you're bluntly honest in stating that psychology must expand, as Professor Padmajaji rightly mentioned. It is not replacing, but it is explaining. At the same time, you have given a root cause analysis why actually there are certain mental health problems in the society. They're referring to the verse in Gita, Sangas Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodho Vijayate. And yes, this is the root cause that is in fact not attended by the psychological and medical fraternity. Unfortunately, as mentioned in Shishrata, that also quoted by you, the definition of the health, swastha ityabhidhiyate. Who is a swastha? Atma is also there. So the combination, the what you call the homeostasis of the Indriyas, Manas, and Atma, together with all remaining what are mentioned in this Shishrata's quotation, is really causing the good health. So that includes mental health also. In this context, that question raised by one of the participants, Atma, which is actually missing in modern psychology, and you rightly said that psyche itself is Atma or Manas, which is totally missing from their studies. They have eliminated from the study, but still they do psychology. So here, sir, what I feel is Charaka Samhita, I think it says Vyakta Tadatve Yabuddhi Pratyaksham Sa Niruchyate. So in combination of Atma, Manas, and Indriyas, whatever perception, whatever we perceive is only called Pratyaksham. And this pratyaksham is, this experience is based on pramanas. These pramanas are not considered in science. Though they do the pramanas, unfortunately, they don't accept that they imply pratyaksham, they imply anumanam, they imply shabda, and they also imply yukti, which are accepted in Charaka Samhita. That way, that is one observation I would like to offer. And quoting my Guruji, His Holiness Sri Datta Swami, who is also a scientist and a world famous spiritual master, he wrote in his discourses that Atma is nothing but Annat Purusha, as mentioned in the Upanishad. The conscious, the awareness, the consciousness is based on the food that we take. Initial pure consciousness is there, that is called Atma. Then the Jiva is a bundle of thoughts. Antakaranam, all those things are there. Together we call as Jiva plus Atma, Jivatma. This is the individual soul. And this soul is actually based on the innate energy, which is generated in the awareness, from where all the remaining functions are happening, including neurological functions. So Atma is nothing but innate energy. The clue is when we go to deep sleep, this awareness disappears. It goes back to its original state called innate energy. It is stored in the pulses. That is how Atma is defined. Again, when I'm getting up, I'm awakening myself, then I'm recalling what happened. During the deep sleep, I'm not able to recall what happened. That is why it is called deep sleep, Sushupti Avastha. That is how Adachayana Nityajata Nityama Manase Mrutam, as mentioned in Gita, every day the human being dies and takes rebirth. Every day. That is why when we say which karma we are actually undergoing, we don't know. No, not required. It may be yesterday's karma also. That is also Purva Janma. Because every day is a Janma to all of us. Unfortunately, the Western psychology is based on Western philosophy. Western philosophy is based on, some of the Western religious scriptures, to say precisely biblical thoughts. This is where the ideologies have been passed on to modern science. Unfortunately, scientists like René Descartes would not be able to locate the mind precisely, and he said that is there in the brain. Who belongs to 16th century, much before Wilhelm Wundt said something about modern psychology. This is how I think we have a precise and clear knowledge about the place of mind, existence of Atma. All these things are there. If modern psychology has to accept the existence of Atma, they also have to accept the karma and punarjanma. This is a cycle. I think they have not come to that level because the religious scriptures restrict them not to go beyond that purview. Some of, I think that is one of the reasons. And you said rightly about dharma. And when everybody is dharmika, there is no sin in the world. If there is no sin, everybody is happy. Shanti is there. If dharma is established, then shanti is also equally established. And Indian psychology is applied psychology, you mentioned. Wonderful statement. You gave wonderful scriptural quotations. In fact, I was rather referring to a Sanskrit scholar rather than a psychologist. Such a way you have given wonderful citations from different Shastras. And at the same time, I enjoy you calling me Shastriji. Some of the friends might be confused. Who is this Shastri? Is none other than me. And yes, sir. The integrated psychology, you gave the vision. All these things are really highly useful, and this fills us with more confidence to go ahead in this direction because we have been doing something. We have been studying. Stalwarts like you, who are world famous psychologists, giving us this confidence really boosts our morale to go further in this direction. We have been doing something. With your guidance and blessings, definitely we'll do more in association and collaboration with dynamic leaders like Professor Padmaja. And at the same time, yeah, I think time is the constraint. I have to say so many things. After listening your lecture, I am so much inspired. Anyway, I will talk to you later. And my pranams to you, sir, once again. Thank you very much for this wonderful lecture. And I take this opportunity to also informally thank Thank you, sir. Also to thank Professor Yamuna Madam from Sri Shankaracharya Institute of Sanskrit, and colleague Dr. Narayananji, and head the Center for Psychology, Professor Padmaja Madam. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very
Namaste,
much.
pranams. Pranams,
Thank
sir.
you all. Before as we come to the conclusion, now I invite Ms. Udit to propose the vote of thanks.
Namaste all. On behalf of the Department of Sanskrit Studies and the Center for Psychology, University of Hyderabad, as well as Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kalladi, it is my privilege to extend the vote of thanks for today's session of Tadvidyasambhāṣā lecture series. Today's lecture on why Indian psychology matters today reminds us that Indian psychology is not just the psychology of Indians, but a genuine science of the mind drawn from Indian traditions such as Vedas, Yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism, and Jainism. Professor Girishwar Misra also explained how Western psychology creates some problems while Indian psychology focuses on solving problems, offering insights that modern approaches mostly miss. Throughout this session, we understood how important Indian psychology is and what is the use of it in the modern world. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Girishwar Misra for sharing his profound scholarship and valuable insights with us. His lucid presentation not only enhanced our understanding of the relevance of Indian psychology today, but also inspired us to engage more deeply with our intellectual heritage, the Indian knowledge system. I extend my sincere thanks to Professor Yamuna K, Head Department of Sanskrit Vyakarana, Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, for her continued encouragement and academic collaboration. My respectful gratitude also goes to Professor J.S.R. Prasad, Head Department of Sanskrit Studies, University of Hyderabad, and to the academic staff of Professor Kaveri Jadhav and Professor Vedinidhi for their constant support for this lecture series. I must also thank Professor Achyutananda Misra and Professor G. Narayanan from Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kalladi, as well as Professor Padmaja Gadiraju from Center for Psychology, University of Hyderabad, for their valuable contribution and continued support for this lecture series. Moreover, I would like to thank those who helped conduct this session smoothly. Research scholar Krishna Sri Babu, who hosted this session, research scholar Subhashish De, who provided technical support, and all those participants who made this session lively and engaging with their thoughtful questions. Finally, I am deeply grateful to everyone, including all faculties from the Department of Psychology, University of Hyderabad, and Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kalladi, who joined this session and gave their valuable time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Udit. I think we can conclude our session here. We hope to meet you again in the next section of Tadvidyasambhāṣā lecture series. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Girishwar Misra, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Have a pleasant evening. Namaste.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I congratulate the young research scholars who have done so much of work. Appreciations to you all. Subhashish, you, Krishna, and all the others. I don't know all the names, but all of you. Right. Okay. Good night.
Yamuna Madam, I could get time to talk to you. So nice to see you back. Thanks for all the academic help.
Okay, sir.
Okay, madam. Namaste.